So while we are waiting for everyone to show up in Blackboard, what I would like you to do is find lesson 3 and answer for me, what is one thing you need from me as your teacher? And while you're doing that, just so you know, today we're going to be talking about output in Java. Morning, John. So go to Blackboard lesson 3. It's a short discussion post, and you're going to be writing a response as, what is one thing you need from me as your teacher? In Blackboard under lesson 3. Did you submit lesson 2? Oh. Okay, so you're going to have to wait on submitting lesson 3 as well. It's linked. Okay? Did you submit lesson 2? If you submitted it, you should have it. Let me see. Let me just make it open up. Once you're done, hit submit, 45 your screen, look up here. So, I'll read those over. I don't think there's a reason why we need to do that out loud. So we're going to start with a little exercise. For the next couple minutes, I'm going to put you in small little groups. Let's do groups of 5, okay? Because there's a lot of you. And as a group of 5, just within your local region, don't move around a lot. Let's just stay local. I'd like you to come up with directions to get to the main office from this room. Come up with a list, step-by-step, procedure of directions to get to the main office, okay? Just a group of 5 people together, written on a piece of paper. One person can kind of write them down for everybody. It needs to be written down on a piece of paper or on a laptop, one or the other, because you're going to follow those directions, and we're going to see how it works out, okay? So go ahead and do that. Take a couple minutes right now.
Are we starting from like the...
Okay, you have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, now, in your list, you have a list of directions in front of you now. What I would like you to do is identify which of those steps are really collections of steps. Like if you said stand up, isn't that really a collection of steps that involves movements of the arms and movements of the legs? So we're going to identify those as methods. We're going to call them like built-in methods, library methods, things that your body already knows how to do. You don't have to really explain how that happens, and you guys clearly felt that you didn't need to explain how that happens, so we're going to call that a built-in method. So put a star next to that as that is a library method. Then I would like you to put a circle next to anything that's really just a single action, a single statement. Put a circle next to there. So we're really just separating out things that are really methods and things that are just single commands. So why don't you take a minute and do that in your list. Okay, now the fun part. Here's what you're going to do next. I want you to actually have one member of the group try out your directions, and we're going to do this one at a time, one team at a time. So you're going to go through, and one member is going to read out the directions. The other team member will perform those directions one step at a time. So select a team member. For our video friends, if you're by yourself, you're going to have to do it yourself. And if you couldn't find directions to the office, just use some other room in your house. Okay? I heard some interesting directions. Some of them were collections, like stand up. That's definitely a method. Turn door handle. Question is whether that's a method or a statement. Turn 90 degrees. Method, statement. It's kind of an interesting thought process. In Java, it turns out that everything is going to be part of some object's method. Because you could make the argument that turning right 90 degrees actually is a collection of things. You know, there's some way of physically pivoting the body that your body has to know how to do. Turning the door handle requires turning a wrist and grabbing the door handle and moving. So there really is a collection of things, and that's kind of how Java works. It's really, really difficult to bring down everything in Java to a single statement. It's really hard to do. And a lot of things you won't be able to do that. There are some things that we can talk about as single statements in Java, but most of what we talk about in Java will be a collection or a method that is part of what's called an object. So we're going to look at really what is a computer program. What do you guys think? So take a minute, think about that, and then we're going to share out. I want you to really think about it. Computer program really is a way of solving a problem. It's often iterative, which means it's a problem that we have to solve over and over again. For example, standing up. I mean, if we consider that as a method by itself, how often during the day do you stand up? It's something that we can repeat over and over again. It's something that we allow a problem to be solved, but something that can be solved more than once. We don't write computer programs to solve problems, usually, that we only need to solve one time. They're usually problems that we have to solve over and over and over again. So here's the program we looked at yesterday. There's a whole bunch of things up here, which we'll talk more about later. What we're going to do today is focus in on this line right here. But let's look at Dr. Java and look at how it looks like in that program. So there's a couple things I want to focus in on. We have this statement here, system.out.println, parentheses, quotes, hello world. When I run this, the first thing I need to do is use the compiler. And what happens is Java makes sure that everything is okay. Now, in this version of the compiler, I'm actually getting 2 warnings. And it says I haven't used some things yet. And I know I haven't used them yet, and that's okay. But Java's just letting me know. The version of the compiler can be selected from here. Mine only has one version. Some of you might have more than one version, the Eclipse or the JDK. You probably want to switch to Java, the JDK 8, when you're running this yourselves, if it's available. If it's not, we kind of may have to work that out, but it's not that big of a deal. Once you've run it, once you've compiled it, you now need to go up and click Run. And in the interactions window down here, we get an output that says hello world, which matches exactly what was in the quotes. So Java actually was told its system object to output something with a print command. Java knows how to do that. You don't need to know how Java does that. This idea is called abstraction. You don't need to know exactly how that works. You just need to know that that's how Java outputs things to the screen. That may feel uncomfortable, that, oh, I probably should know exactly how that works. But no, you don't have to. Do you know exactly how your body stands up? No, there's certain things that are just automatic, that are built in. And Java has these built-in commands and methods. So this is your first real method. We're accessing system. It is a method. System is an object. And we're telling it to print to the screen, hello world. But if we look further at this command, there's a second command we can use that's called print. So it's different. This one does .print. This one here, we talked about, does println. So we're going to try to explore the difference between those two to see what's going on. So what I'm going to do is take this statement here. Probably should just do this with the computer. And I'm going to change the word println to print. And we'll make it say something interesting. So I'm going to compile this, make sure we have no errors. Sometimes I do typos, so hopefully I didn't do a typo. Looks like we just have our warnings, no errors. I'm going to run it now. Take a look, and I want you to tell me, what do you think the difference between print and println is? Just think about it for a minute. So if I decide to take the ln out of this second statement, where should the cursor go? Well, so we're going to try that. Hit compile. We're going to hit run. And see where the cursor is? The cursor's up on the same line as hello world. So ln is a carriage return and a line feed. It actually does two things. Carriage return, line feed. The phrase carriage return, line feed comes back to the old-fashioned typewriters, where when you were typing, you actually had to do two actions to get down to the next line. You had to press and rotate the roll to get down to the next line, but then you had to move the carriage to the beginning to get to the beginning of the line. So if you hear somebody say carriage return line feed, that's what it's from. You can separate those two actions out in computer science. In Java, the ln is both a carriage return and a line feed. It does both those things. So if we do some experimentation with this a little bit, if I wanted to get these two to print out on the same line, I would just do print. If I want to get them to print out on different lines, I would want a carriage return line feed after hello Dave. And traditionally, we like the carriage return to be after the last line as well. So I might want to change both of these to print line rather than print. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to println. I'm going to change this one here to println. And then we're going to compile. And then we're going to run. And we can see that we get both on separate lines, and the cursor ends up on the next line. So we now know two Java methods, print and println. So you're going to start getting a mental collection of these things. You're going to be using this one a lot. You can write it down, but trust me, we're going to be using it so often that you're going to become very familiar with it. So it's system.out.print, system.out.println. So the compiler checks for errors. We're going to talk more about this later, because there's a couple different things that can happen with a compiler. But to start, the first thing we need to worry about what the compiler does is it goes through and makes sure there's no syntax errors. We didn't spell anything wrong. We're not missing a semicolon. We're not missing quotes. We did everything correct in terms of the text. The run then follows the computer's directions and follows those statements literally. So if you make a mistake, the computer doesn't know the difference. There's a phrase that goes with that. It's called Geico. It's not the insurance company. It stands for garbage in, garbage out. Put garbage in to the computer in terms of commands, you're going to get garbage out. Geico. G-I-G-O. So we have this command, system.out.print. Java separates objects and methods of those objects using these periods. This is actually connected between two different things, system.out.print, so it's the system object, and then the out object as a part of the system, and then we're telling it to print. Usually the method is clear because after the method comes parentheses. That's how we know that's the final method. It has parentheses, and often it takes some type of argument within the parentheses. Your Java methods will always need parentheses even if they take no argument. The parentheses are a must. So I'm going to ask you guys in Blackboard to do the you try tonight. You're going to modify this program so it says, welcome to AP Computer Science. You're not going to do it now. Do it tonight as part of your kind of homework assignment. Okay? So put that in your list of things to do tonight. Unit 3, Module 1, Lesson 3. Yes, you're going to upload the file, change it to welcome to computer science, and we'll go from there. So let's talk about errors. If I were to make a mistake, like forget a semicolon here, and then hit compile, Java highlights the mistake and tells me where the mistake is. It's actually pretty clear. The error is a syntax error, and I need to insert a semicolon to complete the block statement. That's a very clear error. Unfortunately, not every error that comes from the compiler is clear. So part of what you're going to have to do is learn to interpret those errors to find mistakes. For example, I'm going to put my semicolon back in, but this time I'm actually going to go ahead and delete my quotes. Notice, first off, the text changes color when you do that. It's a different color. I'm going to hit compile. And this time, syntax error on token Dave. Delete the token. That has nothing to do with what's really wrong. But Java doesn't know what your intention is. Java just knows it sees something that doesn't belong there. So it's saying, that doesn't belong there, delete it. Because the print statement will work without anything in here at all. I could go in here and delete everything out of these parentheses. And as long as I have the parentheses, that's okay. So I'm doing what Java said to fix the error. Delete what's there. But that's not what my intention is. But Java is trying to tell me what I need to do to make it run. Java is solving the problem the easiest way it knows how, which may not be what your intention was. So you cannot rely upon the compiler to solve your problem. It will just show you a mistake and give you what it thinks. It's not really that smart. It can't read your intention. It's only giving you what it thinks it needs to solve the problem. So what we really need to do is go back in there and put in the quotes and make sure we have quotes around the string. So a couple common errors are the missing semicolon or missing quotes, at least for now. Students always forget the missing semicolon. A little hint on the AP exam, if you miss the semicolon, they probably won't take off points, as long as it's pretty clear that's meant to be the end of a line. There are a couple instances, if you're missing a semicolon or if you're missing a bracket, that they will take off points. But if it's something just as a print statement and you happen to miss a semicolon, they will not take off a point for that, because they consider it just a mistake that would be easily picked up by a compiler, and the error would be clear to you. It's just a typo, so to speak, not a conceptual error. So next, we're going to talk about strings, but we're going to talk about that tomorrow because it looks like we're going to hit the clock, right? I think our time ends here at 8:31, right? So we're going to pick up strings in our next session.